So we'll just kind of like dive right in. I just want to say, like,
Perfect.
first and foremost, thank you so much for coming and being my first
Yay!
guest.
Am I
And
your
you're,
first? Oh my
yeah,
God.
you're my first. So it's like, if it's awkward and I don't know what I'm doing, we know why.
This is the real shit. You're not going to get more raw than this. So
Yeah,
this is what
exactly.
people want.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be good. But honestly, you're so perfect and so like fitting for this. Like, I'm talking to conscious leaders, and like you literally teach conscious leadership. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so perfect. And so like obviously like I gave you a little intro, but I want you to talk about like what you're currently doing right now in terms of like the rising leader, the Yes Haven. You've built these amazing communities and containers and are supporting people who are doing amazing things or who are, wanting to get to that place. Tell me about
hmm
it.
Whoa, where do I start? Okay, well, I can speak of what we have going on right now, which
Yeah.
is we have the membership, so the Yes Haven. It got birthed because I wanted a place that was very affordable. I wanted as many people to come in to get, everything they need and more to get their hands dirty, basically. And also do it in a place where they feel safe. Like, throughout like, I don't know, probably the last 6, 7 years of my work doing this, obviously it's evolved, started like holistic healing and then it evolved into what I'm doing now. But the biggest theme that I saw was like how unsafe people felt
Mm.
in themselves, in the world, with their money, with their business, with their partnership, themselves, like everything. People just felt so unsafe. And we can cover more of that later if you want as to what that even means. But I remember when, finding the word for my membership or my community space, I was like, oh, what am I going to call it? And my podcast, Your Expansive Self, the acronym is YES. And I was like, that's so weird. I didn't even like,
Oh.
yeah. And so I was like, that's so strange. I never even knew it was that. And what I find really interesting is that, people refer to me as like someone who's really good with expansion. And
Mm-hmm.
in expansion, there's a lot of contraction, a lot. And at the same time, there's a lot of demand to say yes a lot. And it's again like the irony, like you have to learn how to say no in order to know your yeses. So there's a lot of like polarity, duality, irony in the Yes Haven, but it just sounds really beautiful. And the word haven comes from like a place of safety for large containers that are deep in waters. And I love
Oh.
words. And I was like,
Yeah, you
okay,
do.
like I fucking love words. And so to me, it was like, well, I want to support big humans, big energy who are going to their depths. And like Haven is exactly that. So, anyways, long story short, we have the Yes Haven that has like somatic, weekly somatic sessions, which I'm very passionate about, been doing since the beginning, no matter how much my work has evolved, because I know for a fact there's a missing link between the mind and the body.
Mm.
And I studied a lot of like, healing from dis-ease. I've had to heal myself from a bunch of things, supported my clients through that too. And I just noticed that there's this disconnection of people doing this work consciously and even subconsciously, but again, only through the mind. Like we forget just how much the body holds. And again, if there's no safety, if you don't know how to let go, which if you want to look at it as a scientific aspect, like if you are not able to be in a parasympathetic nervous system state, which is like calm, you're at ease, you feel connected, you feel supported, like you can't do shit. If you're in survival, you can't thrive, period.
Mm.
So that's the baseline. It's like I can't do any work with anyone until they understand how to regulate their nervous systems and be in that state and feel safe. And then we can start doing the things that, cause a lot of expansion and shift and whatnot. So, yes, Haven is really fun. And there's all kinds of workshops like on so many different topics because I can cover so much. And I feel like I just want it to be like a library where people can go in and go like, okay, I'm feeling a certain way. I want to process this. Because when you master emotional intelligence, like you can master energy of life. And that's the Jedi training that I want to bring people to. It's like if you know how to do that, you can play with energy and that includes Monergy. Like, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that after, but Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I want it to be a space really for people to just come in and go like, okay, I need help with my anger. How do I navigate anger? Do I even have anger? What about frustration? Or I feel stuck? Or what's my yes? What's my no? I don't know. Like boundary stuff, people pleasing, and we talk about trauma. We talk about nervous. Like there's just so much. Like honestly, it's
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
So that's one, and
I want
then
to say though, like one thing
yeah,
that I love about what you teach is that you only teach what you've gone through,
yeah,
which, it's the whole
yeah,
concept of like practice what you preach in a way.
yeah,
It's like you
yeah,
actually practice, you've experienced, you've gone through these things, and like you're teaching through your own learning. So obviously like
yeah,
you've done your research and you're studying and that naturally complements your how you support people, but it also comes from that personal experience. And like I think that
yeah,
that's like a great lesson for anyone, that no matter what you're doing, like the best way to teach is from your own personal experience. And
1000%.
I've been a client of yours, a
Hmm.
few years back, and I've felt that directly, and just like feeling the trust in knowing that you've kind of gone through these things and you're supporting based on how you gone through them. And also you don't
Hmm.
necessarily provide like direct advice on like you should do this or you should do that, but like
Yes.
more so guiding and giving people the tools to like make their own decisions for what feels best for them. So I really appreciated that in the way that you teach. So like anyone who would be interested in kind of joining any of your containers can kind of expect that same, I guess, experience and treatment.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Honestly, like that's my biggest goal. Like honestly, my biggest focus is like because I see too many of this. Unfortunately, I'm in an industry that is I mean, every industry is oversaturated in their own ways. So like to say that my own is like that, it's not true because I'm sure you see your industry in the similar way of like, oh my God, there's
Yeah.
so much of this. Like every industry has this. So it's not even about that. But I am in an industry where the work is very oriented around a direct person and direct teachings. And a lot of them, and it's, again, this is just sharing from my personal experience because I've had to learn a lot through it because there was a point that I saw the darkness of my industry and I didn't even want to continue, which was really hard for me because I really love this work.
What do you
But I
mean by
basically,
darkness though? Like expand
oh
on that.
man, There- you're like, give me the juice. I love it. Well, kind of like what you were saying, like people who teach, I like for me, it's like the innocence that I still have that I actually really appreciate about myself. It's like me still thinking people are good people all the time. Not everyone's a good person, okay? People have really fucked up. Can I swear on here? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
assuming yes. Okay, cool. I was like, we're similar that way. But some people have like fucked up intentions and like there's a lot of people who are teaching from a place where they're just it's unfortunately easy money. And so people are selling these things about money, literally like, hey, come join my program, I'll teach you about money. But yet I found out that these, not everyone, but let's say
Yeah.
there was a couple times where I hear these people being conscious business money coaches or whatever, and I find out they're like 80, 100K, 200K in debt. And I'm like, how the fuck are you teaching this? Like, this is just, in my opinion, it's bad karma. Like, I don't want any of that. Like, not to say I'm not expecting everyone to be perfect, but at least master your craft or try to, anyways. But so there was a lot of things that I saw of like these people showing up a certain way online, and then I was seeing the other side of who they really are. And again, they're human. We're all human. We all have our shit. But there's a line. Like, in my opinion, it's like be upfront, be honest, be transparent about where you're at. And I think for me, one of my gifts is that I can't lie. Like I'm literally the worst fucking liar. Like if I'm not well,
Same,
people
by the
know,
way.
which is great.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful to have that transparency even in business and especially in business, right? I think we're so programmed for all of us to be a certain way so that and like literally self manipulate
Yeah.
ourselves into another version of what we think we should be in order to be successful. And it just felt like there was a lot of like coaches who hire coaches who hire coaches who are business coaches, and there was just a lack of uniqueness and like almost like faith led, heartfelt, genuine, loving, like I'm on team people kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of what I saw also is that like the darkness is like you know, some humans were, I think, using the spiritual card as a bypass, meaning I'm spiritual, of course I have good intentions. And it's like, nope, that's not true at all. So it made me
Yeah.
just really question a lot. Like I invested a lot of money in business coaches. I invested like $50,000 one year, just like being in containers and masterminds, and seeing what I was receiving was a shock. It was a shock. I was like, you call yourself trauma informed? Someone is obviously going through a trauma period right now, and you just left her hanging, and that broke my heart. Like I was just seeing things like that time and time
Yeah,
again, and it made me quite, I was like, do I show up like that? Oh my God, like these
for sure.
people talk about themselves like this, and am I like this? I was literally questioning my entire reality as to who I was as a leader, which I guess now looking back is part of the initiation of being a leader and being a trailblazer. Is like, you're going to go through initiations where you question your entire identity as to who you are, what you've created. Is it good? Is it with good intention? Can you be honest with yourself? And where is
Yes.
that going? Where is that and like, are you really creating this for the betterment of people, or are you doing this to confirm to yourself that you're worthy and you're valuable in your work in the world?
Yeah.
Because that's an uncomfortable observation to have if you really sit with yourself and you're like, shit, like this is not what we call it, what I call like the, you know, conscious business really supporting the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and something else. I forget. And
Wait, I have it written down here.
you do? Oh
Power,
my God.
power.
Power. Yes, 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 yes. And I can't believe you have that. Oh my God.
I was literally going to bring that up next because I was listening to one of your older podcasts earlier this week, and you were talking on, you know, conscious leadership, conscious business, and you were talking about the 4 Ps, and essentially like
Yes.
a conscious business or a conscious leader having that self-awareness, like going beyond the growth and profit and all of that, you know?
Yes.
And like you said, like it has to have purpose, it has to hold power, it has to support people and support the planet, which I thought was
Yes.
like epic. I was like, we have to talk about this because it's
Yes.
so in line with like what I feel and what I believe. And even to kind of like go back on kind of finding yourself in business, I found, especially when I was first starting my company, I thought I had to show up in a specific way, you know, like they expect me to be this type of business person that I made up in my mind and speak a certain way and conduct myself a certain way and email a certain way and whatever. And like, you know, to a degree, obviously you have to be professional, but also
Yeah.
as I kind of continued and like dove into this like personal development journey at the same time, it started to become a direct reflection of the success of my business because I was becoming more and more myself. And then I realized that clients really just want to have an experience human to human and connect with people. And then the second you realize that, like that's when things and doors just start opening up because you're now connecting with people and you're not just chasing the money. You know, like people see past that, like people are over that. And like you said, there's so much, I want to say like competition in like quotes, because like realistically, like there's space for everyone to succeed, to make money, like the abundance that exists in the world, it's there so long as you believe that it's there, right? Like it's all literally in your mind. Anyways, definitely resonated with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me also that like lately you've been talking a lot about no longer placing conditional success, permission, and allowances on yourself. So in essence, breaking the good girl syndrome. So I'm curious, like, could you elaborate a little bit more on what that good girl syndrome means to you and how you've applied your life learnings to your teaching in that sense specifically?
Yes, like just you saying that, I was like, ah, I felt my whole body just like light up. And also like little background is because like both my parents are entrepreneurs. I went to business school. Like I've watched, I've seen, I've been taught the shit that like you were literally talking about of like, oh, I'm starting a business. I should probably do this. I should probably be like that, blah, blah, blah. And I've seen my mom and my dad both morph themselves constantly in relationship in their businesses just to have the connections and the money and the this and the that. And it was just, I remember watching that when I was a kid and I was just like, we're doing what for what? Like, what do you mean? We have to like, I have to like wear this outfit so that I could be I can look a certain way so that it makes you look
outfits.
better. Right.
How
Oh
you
yeah.
dress, how you present yourself. That's, you know, for me too, especially, I love fashion. I love expressing myself. And
Yep.
like the little thing, like even having like a midriff, I used to be like so in my head about like, oh my God, I can't show my stomach. Now I'm like, fuck it. Like, I'm not going there looking like I'm about to like dance on a pole, you know, no offense to anyone who does, because I actually know some epic pole dancers who are like killing it, like background dancing for like Snoop Dogg and stuff, you know?
Yeah, Kiana.
Yes. Oh my God, she's sick. She's killing it. But anyways, all that to say is like, I am aware of like the type of event that I'm going to, but at the same time, like, I'm not going to not express myself in terms of the way I dress just because I think someone's going to think a certain thing. And you know what I've noticed? I get compliments on my outfits almost every single networking event that I go to, because it's still classy, it still looks good, but it's always a little like spunky, whether I wear like a certain color, like a weird shoe or whatever, you know? And I'm like,
because you're more of yourself.
Exactly. And I like, I'm like proud of that, to be able to kind of be myself, really be myself.
You said it right then. Is like, it's not my problem how other people basically perceive you. Yeah. So that is the part that we get to understand about the good girl syndrome, because it is basically a reflection of the wounded feminine, who basically her narrative is internally, and we all have feminine, we all have masculine, we all have dominant and submissive energy. We can dive into this much more after if you want, but this wounded feminine of ourselves is the good girl, the one who will do anything to be seen in a certain light. She will morph herself so that she can be accepted and validated and never rejected. She will do anything so that she can make sure you love her unconditionally, and she'll never be left behind. So like, what can I do to make sure that I'm the best for you, kind of thing, which is completely fucking codependent and fucked up, because realistically, you can't control people at all. You can't control their perspective. You can't control how they feel. You can't control what they perceive. You cannot control how they receive you, period. So why would you keep self-manipulating? And this is where people don't fully understand how energy work, because energy does not care about good or bad energy. Energy is not being like, I'm a good energy and I'm a bad energy. Energy is just being. So when you are self-manipulating yourself subconsciously, you're not doing it consciously. When you self-manipulate subconsciously in your business, you will keep receiving manipulative energy back, which will show up in people who are terrible clients, or constant chaos, or just people constantly asking for refunds. I never have any of that. Like, people who struggle with that, I'm like, sure, it could be normal, I guess, or common, but there's something to look at here, and there's something we can definitely refine. And that's like the icky part of selling too, that we can easily experience, is people self-manipulating, no matter what industry, and being what they want the other person to perceive them as, just so they could get the sale. And they'll say anything, they'll do like really cringy car salesmen. Like, that to me is like, that's what I think of. You know, you walk in there and you're like, ugh, you already know these guys are just gonna fucking do anything they can to make you feel special and warm, and don't worry, I'll take care of you. It's totally manipulative. Yeah. And it's not clean. It's energetically not clean. It's not fair. It's unkind. And it definitely has nothing to do with conscious business, which now we see more than ever. Anything that's not in alignment with the 4 Ps, and to be honest, with God, it's fucking falling apart. We're seeing it. It's been happening for years. Shit's crumbling. And people are trying to hold on, and they're being invited to a whole new level and version of themselves. And they're like, I don't know what to do. And they're freaking out, basically.
So when you say like shit's crumbling, just so that like we can give other people context, like what do you mean by that, high level?
In my opinion, spend time on this could be a rabbit hole. In my opinion, what I'm witnessing in the world right now, and I've been witnessing for some time now, pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, and then it's still going on. We're seeing truth coming up to the surface. We're seeing things are being finally admitted to years after. We're seeing anything that is not in alignment with again the 4 Ps, if it's not supportive, like a win-win-win for me, for you, for all of us in the world, we're seeing that it no longer works. It just doesn't work anymore. Like, people are looking to shop locally. People are looking to invest their money in a way that feels really good. I think
Support businesses
basically
with like a cause too. Yeah.
exactly. Like there's a deeper meaning to things because people are hungry for connection. So anything that cause disconnection at a small scale in corporate, in a big scale, anything that is disconnective, people are getting tired of it. Like they are just fucking fed up and we're just getting started. And I do think that no matter what, like there will be a peak before there's a huge crumble. But I think we can't like we're people are tired of being manipulated into buying things that they don't want, and people are getting tired of purchasing things that are not really aligned with their core values. Like people feel that shit. Like, and I don't think it's a pleasant experience for everyone. I think people are really being invited to look at themselves fully and how their money and their work is being a reflection of that too. And I think we're all being invited in micro and macro ways to look at how we're contributing our energy and our time and our money in the world through our work and our giving back and of being of service in a way that supports all of us, not just self-sacrificing to the point of being, you know, the good person. That's not going to work anymore either. That's still self-manipulating because you still want to be seen as a good person. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like that's like the short end of the stick,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, for sure. Let's like switch gears a little bit here. I know that you talk a lot about like masculine and feminine energy in your work. So this is something that I've kind of come to learn over the years, what the difference is, how I connect with one and the other, and how to kind of find that balance between the two. So for someone who's less familiar with with these concepts, or this concept, if you will, what in your words is the difference between the two, and what in the ideal world is like the perfect balance?
Oof, I don't think perfect balance exists, to be honest.
Okay, fair.
Right off the bat. I think it's like like the way that I look at it is like it's a pendulum, right? So you have extremes, but a pendulum never stops in the middle, which would technically be considered balance. Because it's completely in the center. But the pendulum always goes like this, right? It's always left to right, swinging left to right. And then if you really want to have an extreme, you pull the pendulum and now, baby, let's go. Like you're up and down and around and twisting and turning. And that's where most people get stuck. So I think it's less about balance and more about understanding your own patterns as to why you go to extremes and what can you do to support yourself to kind of live cyclically, because it will be at one point really right and then at one point it'll be really left, and you just get to honor which side you're on in that moment.
So explain
what was your question?
Me, like the difference between the two,
oh yeah,
like the masculine and the feminine.
Right. So here's a thing. Actually, I don't think you've heard me speak of this before, because I kind of added on to this recently in the last year or so, because one of my teachers that like when I went through my thing last year, like I was like, I'm not listening to anyone unless they're like what I call underground Jedis, like the people who are like not really well known but like have some shit to say and it makes absolutely so much sense and that understand energy. So one of them is like David R. Hawkins. I've always spoken about him for so long. And another teacher is Kasia Urbaniak, and she is if you look her up, she's next level. She has a book called Unbound, and for women. And I suggest every single woman to read this book. And so she was a Taoist nun for 20 years. And at the same time was New York's top dominatrix. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yes. So you have full polarity, right? Complete contrast. And so she talks a lot about energy from a place of this dominant energy and this submissive energy. And so you can think about this in a way of like the masculine and the feminine. So I would consider more the masculine, feminine as a way that we show up ourselves. And then you can refer back to the dominant versus submissive energy in the way that how we interact with the world. So the masculine and feminine energy that we have within, the masculine is considered, you know, the one that is doing, that has structure, that is linear, that has goals, that has an end game, basically. Like we're doing this to get somewhere. And it's beautiful. And there's always what I call an immature side to both of those aspects. So the immature would be the immature masculine would be like you think of like a little boy energy who's like a teenager. Like he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't want any responsibilities. He is completely avoidant. He's kind of fucking around. Like he's doing things half-assed. Like a lot of people are actually kind of there. And then you have the mature masculine who is like present. He's the rock. He knows his responsibilities. He will do what he needs to do in order to be the man of that he wants himself to be, but also for the feminine. Like he really works for the feminine because he understands how important that is. So there's roles, there's jobs, there's something to do, and a way of like, I think a lot of people operate from a wounded masculine in the sense of like, I got to do something just to achieve the goal, versus a masculine is doing it because he cannot do anything else but this. Like this is who he is. So you can kind of look at them as like archetypes, like in your mind, like characters almost. Those are really great ways to like play with them because we all have them, right? It's not because you're a woman that you are just in the feminine. You have both. And then the feminine, again, mature versus immature, you think of it like as a grown, integrous, like a really beautiful anchored woman who understands her wildness. Okay, so the mature feminine is like, she's fluid, she understands her emotions, she's kind of like the river, and the masculine's like the rock. So she's like in her emotions, she welcomes it all. She's like divine nature energy, she births, she dies, like she's cyclical, like she's just in all of it. She's the mother, the maiden, the crone, in all aspects. And then you have the immature feminine, who is the total little girl energy, who's like, I want everything that I want right here, right now. She's always having tantrums. She has no ability to like co-regulate at all or regulate herself. She is living in a fantasy world, which a lot of women who, I'm sorry if you're one of them, but I'm just going to tell you straight up, not you, but whoever's listening. I know for a fact you're not there, but some women live by this fantasy of, I am a goddess. It's like the mature feminine actually understands that being a woman is enough. And that's her power. That's her creation force. And so this immature feminine is very, she doesn't want to grow up either. She like doesn't want any responsibility. She doesn't want to fuck with money. Even though she wants money, she doesn't want to fuck with it. And she is, anxious, avoidant, and she's basically stuck in the drama triangle, which a lot of us can be in very easily, being a victim, then being a villain, then being the hero, just like, it's chaos. It's chaotic. Even just me talking about it, my body knows. It's like, it's exhausting. So that's how we operate between both internally, and they're really great to understand with business because there are times that you are required to be in your mature masculine energy where you complete the tasks, you are available to look at your finances, have the courage to do the things that you don't always want to do because you know that that's your responsibility. And then you want to go on the other side of things, kind of being that pendulum, right? And that's where I guess the balance can come in, is like you balance it by allowing yourself to go to the other side, which would be being more in your feminine, where you rest and you enjoy the beauty of life and you enjoy the pleasure and you are connected to your body and your emotions and you dance and you go play and you connect with your girlfriends and you are basically more connected to that beauty. And that's really going to support. So most people have been taught to just do things mostly in the immature masculine energy in business, period. Not even the mature aspect, like totally immature there. And then at home, they'll have their immature feminine tantrums of like, so unfair. Why is this not working? Oh, no. And like, they're just like in their shit, which we've all experienced. And sometimes what can be really beneficial for us is being intentional when it comes to having our tantrums. We will have our tantrums. They're actually you got to feel. So the mature feminine comes in and goes, okay, there's the little girl. We need to process this right now. So what am I going to do to make sure I can feel what I need to feel and process this efficiently so that it doesn't become a problem in my life? That's how we get to work with it. It's not about never having the tantrum or never being a victim. It's like, no, when it comes up, allow yourself to go there in a very intentional way so you can support yourself to be in that energy so that it doesn't take over your life.
Yeah. I mean, it's so necessary to have that release. Otherwise, you're storing all of that in your body.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly.
And that's really what makes you sick mentally, emotionally, physically.
Which will affect everything.
There. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You might hear a little pitter patter. It's my doggy walking back and forth.
It's okay. It's so cute. I'm surprised mine is like a dead potato in the corner over there. He's not even moving. Do you want me to touch a little bit on the dominant submissive energy a little bit? Because that's like how we can express this into the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's also maybe a little eye-opening to some people listening, if they're a little less familiar to like the masculine and feminine, I think there's a big misconception that masculine is for men and feminine is for women, when like both are for both.
Yep. Yep.
If that makes sense. And I think you did a good job in kind of describing that in your examples, is, you know, like in your life in certain periods or in different tasks and doings, like your masculine and feminine may come through in different ways, and it's good to kind of tap into both of those.
Yeah. I think that's how we get to allow ourselves to be, in our own health, no matter what, because I think many of us, and again, that will be a part, if as a woman, if we don't allow ourselves to explore one or the either or both, to be honest, and see what it feels like for us, we tend to be operating mostly from a wounded masculine, so this immature kind of energy, but mostly from this place of trying to do and control everything in order to feel safe. So that's when like people just take on everything, and then they get what ends up happening, they get super resentful. They have no more energy. This is actually where autoimmune diseases come in, because we're infinite energy, yes, and at the same time, we have to understand like everything that we do, like right now, this is energy intensive, right? But it's beautiful. I love it. It's lighting me up. There's an exchange that's happening. Now, if you're operating and doing things mostly out of people pleasing, even if it's subconscious, you are not receiving anything out of that. You are just giving your energy away constantly through distractions, emptying your cup through distractions, people pleasing, doing things you fucking hate, whatever, the list goes on. And so what ends up happening at some point is that your body needs to go into its storage fuel to get more energy. Your storage fuel is in your cells, in your tissues. So it will keep reaching and reaching and reaching to get more energy and more energy and more energy. But it's kind of like you're biting the apple, right? Over and over and over and over again. What ends up happening? Well, the apple's gone. There's no more. You just end up being with the core, the bones. And so your body starts to talk to you in a place of like through autoimmune disease, which is so common now, which is very sad. I've had many, and yes, you can heal them. They're not, there for the rest of your life. That's a whole other conversation. But this autoimmune response ends up happening because your body's trying to protect you and tell you to stop. It doesn't have any more energy. You've been operating from survival, from trauma for way too long, and it's time for you to stop. It's time for you to refill your cup at a cellular level, and for you to have better boundaries, for you to start looking at where you're spending your energy, where you're consuming your energy, and from what, and how you are operating in the world. So actually, most dis-ease that we experience in the body is truly a gift, because we get to see louder than ever that something is completely out of alignment with our hearts and our souls and what we're here for. And we get to, but we have to listen. That's the problem. Most people are so drowning in sound and in distractions and voices and information that they do not have the space or the time or capacity to listen to themselves. And that's like the most priceless thing right now.
I would even argue like the willingness. I think that there's a lot of people that are kind of like afraid or avoiding facing these things, especially, sometimes it's deep and dark and ugly, and like you don't want to go there and you don't want to feel those things and you don't want to experience them or bring them up or relive something. But the only way to really kind of move past is almost to kind of, you have to make peace with it. And making peace with it isn't just saying like, yeah, okay, like everything's fine now, moving on. Like there's some serious processing that like typically would need to be done. And I know like I speak from experience, you obviously speak from experience. But like the whole control thing, I definitely relate to, because I feel like a lot of my anxiety in the past stemmed from a lack of control, which I think is very common for most people with anxiety. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm like a very anxious person anymore though. And I think it's because of my awareness of, knowing that I can't have control over everything, and that that's okay, And the second you realize that like there are certain things that are completely out of your control, and that's totally fine, and you just accept them for what they are, you choose not to, stress over something that you can't change, that you don't have the ability to alter. Like that's such a waste. What a waste of energy and time and stress. You know, like people are always worried about like, well, what if this happens or what if that happens? Well, just wait till it happens and then figure it out, you know? Like
Right.
you almost cause yourself more stress thinking about like anticipating it than if you were to just live in the present moment and then like, you know what, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, if we get there, kind of thing.
Right. And well, I mean, that feels really threatening. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And if someone's hearing this and they're like, why the fuck can I do that easily? I know this again, that's the same thing. I know this consciously, but I can't seem to let go. It's because your nervous system is completely out of whack. Yeah. Completely. Like you are just haywire. You are overstimulated. You are just like you're a roller coaster. So yeah, you can't let go and think that way fully and believe it if you are still operating with unprocessed trauma in the body. Again, it's not in the mind, the trauma's in the body. And if you are still completely dysregulated in your nervous system, if you spend no time in nature, if you don't eat properly, if you don't have the proper tools to support your body at an energetic, spiritual, physical, emotional level, yeah, you're fucked. You can keep saying that shit. You'll never believe it. And then everything will come crashing down. And I think that's like around the term also that is very common that I hear is people always waiting for the shoe to drop, right? And so what I find really interesting about, because, you know, I like tapping, right? Like EFT, emotional freedom tapping. It's been a great tool that that's the one thing that has healed my anxiety when I was 15 years old. And I was doing this video one day because it still comes up. I remember like when things go really good for me, my pattern is, and again, thank God for awareness because I'm able to witness, like even with just us getting this new house that we just signed the lease today.
Ooh, congrats.
I know. Thank you. I'm so excited. And it's like such a dream space for me. And I was like, it's like perfect location. It's everything. Yeah. I'm going to send you a video after this. And I'm just so excited. And like things have just been falling in my lap lately. And so when things get good, we have a tendency, not just me, we have a tendency of subconsciously either waiting for the shoe to drop, like, okay, this is too good to be true, like things are gonna fuck up, what's gonna fuck up, or we do something to fuck it up ourselves. And then sometimes that can show up in like we can get sick out of nowhere. Maybe things can fall through. And so that's what happened with us is like we were getting the house and then, you know, we get a call from the real estate and he's like, oh, well, the people don't want a dog, even though there's a dog there already.
Oh, weird.
And they were like, yeah, they don't want it. So they're going to pass. And I was like, I knew it. And my partner was like, no. We're not doing this again. He was like, nope. And I was like, okay, I need to check myself and what resistance am I having right now? And sure enough, as I sat with it, again, tools, as I sat with it, I was like, oh, again, I was waiting for the shoe to drop. It has been a big theme for me in my life. Like so if you understand disease, like every dis-ease, there is an emotional connection to that dis-ease, no matter what it is. When I was 11, I had shingles. If you look it up, the emotional connection to shingles, which I'm 11, that's really young to have shingles. It literally says waiting for the shoe to drop.
Whoa, weird.
And I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. This is like, but now I have an understanding, like that's a theme in my life. So I get to work with it. So I'm like, okay, what does it really mean? So as I'm doing this tapping, there's like this guy, Brad Yates, that I love on YouTube. You can literally Google anything. You can be like tapping for frustration, tapping for anything, it will pop up. And so this guy there's a one for waiting for the shoe to drop. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So he starts to, this is for me. And he starts to explain where the analogy, the story came from around waiting for the shoe to drop, which is really funny because back then when the houses were, you know, people were living stacked up on each other and the walls were thin, you would sleep at the bottom and then there's, you know, the next level on top, like another family neighbors lives there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So people would come home late and, you know, take off their shoe. So they drop one shoe and it's so loud, you'd be downstairs like, oh shit. And like you'd wake up and then you hold yourself like this, like in this state of freeze in your body, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. So that you're like basically prepping your system anticipating for the impact to hit, and then you can just kind of let go and go back to sleep or whatever. And what I loved about this tapping is that he's like, what if this guy has one leg? Like you're going to wait for forever for the other shoe to drop. And it's never going to come.
That is so good perspective, eh?
I know. And I was like, oh yeah, this like you're bracing yourself for impact that is not even there. And I was like, oh my God, where else am I doing this in my life? Because I'm really pretty convinced at this point, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I'm like, where else am I bracing myself in my body for impact through this anticipation that might never come, and it might be fucking things up for me even before they can even happen. Yeah. So that shows up a lot for me in my life. And it's great because I get to see constantly where I limit myself over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And a good book through this, by the way, if ever you want to get your hands on it, is The Big Leap. He talks all about this.
We'll listen to it, but
so good. So The Big Leap talks a lot about this if ever you want to learn more about it.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I have even a personal story with like storing things in your body and how it's like energy and you're holding on to these things and having to release, etc. Before I had moved, so I had basically lived at home with my mom until about, I think I was 24, 25, something like that. But for 3 years there, while I was living with my mom, I was also traveling nonstop. I was working as a flight attendant, so I wasn't really home, but I was doing, in that 3 years of traveling, I was also 3 years long distance with my now husband. So he was doing flight training, in like Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and like God knows where. Obviously I didn't go with him because I was like, I'm gonna go to the rest of the world. But he did his thing, and we did our long distance. Unfortunately, we were able to still see each other pretty frequently because I had my flight passes. But our next move was to go to Toronto together and live together in Toronto, Ryan and I, my husband and I. And so there was a lot happening, a lot of change coming, and I started having this like severe tailbone pain. Like out of nowhere. It made no sense. It was very bizarre. So I started seeing like an osteopath, and she would do all these weird things and put her hands in places where like they were completely unrelated to like my tailbone, just to like create releases. Because with osteopaths, it's like everything's connected, right? So
yes.
Like, oh, well, like this pain is actually coming from like your shoulder or from your neck. Like at one point,
it's never from the spot.
Exactly. At one point, she like stuck her fingers on my palate. Like it was fucking weird. I mean, she had gloves on, okay, but and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And at one point, I just like, she did something and I burst into tears.
Oh, good.
Crying. Like I didn't know why. I didn't know what I was crying for. And she's like, are you well? But at the same time, she was kind of like expecting it. And one thing that she had told me, like after our session, we were just chatting or whatever. She's like, you gotta just, like, you have to relax, you know? Mm-hmm. Literally, she told me, like, you need to chill, like, go relax somewhere, like, let go. You're very high strung. You're very, like, tense, which I was, especially then. This was, like, before I had really kind of understood, like, who I really am, what I really want to represent, like, how I feel in my body. Like, I was very disconnected from my body at that point, and letting all of that stress and that anxiety kind of take over. And like now I mean, I'm fine. I'm healed. I've eventually, I didn't even do anything specifically to like heal it. It just like happened over time. But I honestly think that it was like, I over time released all of these things, whatever that was specifically. I honestly don't know to this day exactly like pinpoint, but I think it's like an accumulation and a buildup of so many things over the years, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just been a journey of like rewriting old stories and like choosing not to live as like a victim of past circumstances and past experiences. And the second you kind of like start rewriting those stories, you just have this new sense of freedom and peace in your life.
Totally. And even that tailbone too, like it's so interesting because if you understand the body, like it's actually pretty easy to understand what's happening, where, when, how. And the tailbone is the root, and the root is all about belonging, tribe, connection, safety, basically landing. Like, and without that, it's like, it's kind of like the roots of your tree are rotten. So how do you expect the rest of the tree to be healthy? Right? It's literally your roots in the ground. So you being traveling so much, you literally had no roots. Like you were just like up and about and out, and I'm sure, like you said, it was before, you know, you were kind of navigating who you were and what you wanted, and so you're probably just totally running on a program, no roots, and your body was like, enough's enough.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about relationships. So we'll jump into now kind of like your work and what you're doing. You've obviously been working for yourself for many years now. You've been building these amazing businesses that we spoke about earlier. How do you feel like your relationships, both romantic and friendships, have changed since, you know, dedicating yourself not only to your businesses, but also to like your work?
That's a great question. Drastic changes. Like, I mean, I am not even the same person as to who I was back then. So how could I be in the same relationships? It's very rare that I'm like, I still have some of the same friendships that I did before, you know, even just like I feel like I change every day. Like, it's so crazy. And so the people who I have around in my life, like, you know, I never doubted that I would have friends who are on my path, no matter what path I'm on. And I think that's a big thing, because I think a lot of people can have a story around, well, if I change, I'll have no one. And it's like, I didn't even have that thought at all. I just knew, because I've always experienced like change, and through that I experienced different types of people, and really solid tribes in different capacities. But basically, honestly, it always comes back down to like, how intimate am I with myself? And so how willing am I with myself to meet myself deeper, to feel my feelings deeper, to really be honest with myself, to basically be my best friend, like, and really love myself. And I'm still working on it. It's actually not even something I'm working on. It's something that I'm cultivating, because I find there's a big difference. Just like when you get in a partnership, you know, I think, or even money,
you're dedicated and like
you're dedicated, you're devoted. And from that, there's only good that can come. And like, you know, I kind of relate this analogy to even like money, and hear me out on this, but like, you know, people really want to have a lot of money, so that I hear this all the time, so that they don't have to think about it anymore. And so they can just like be and chill and whatever. And I'm like, well, would you say the same thing about your partner? You just want a partner so that you don't have to think about them anymore? Like, that doesn't work. You still have to invest and be devoted to that relationship. And the same goes for yourself. You still have to check in. And even in a partnership, even more so in a partnership, I think you have to do the continuous check-in, I would say. I'm trying not to say work, the continuous check-in of seeing how you feel and where you're at, and what you need to do to kind of sit with yourself and go, hey, how are you doing? What is on your heart? Like, what is on your mind? What is going on? Because I think sometimes we tend to hide that part of ourselves away in relationship because of so many different reasons. Honestly, I'm not even gonna get into that. But so for me, the more I met myself deeper, the more intimate I became with myself, the more I listened to my desires, to my needs, to my wants, and really doing the work to move out of any type of unhealthy relationship. Like, and that was really hard, because I was raised in a codependent relationship with my mother unintentionally. They don't do it on purpose, but they're just repeating patterns of what happens to them, just like anything else. And so for me, I really had to learn what it looks like to put me first, because in those relationships, I would put everyone before me. I would feel so responsible for other people's realities and feelings all the time. Like, do you ever hear people going like, oh my God, but I feel so bad? And you're like, for what? Like, but they genuinely feel bad and they feel as though what they're doing to that person, they feel that feeling on the other side too, which is not healthy. Because again, it's not even you at this point. So even people who call themselves like empaths or whatever, it's like, no, you're just codependent. Like, everyone's has empathic ability in a sense where we get to feel each other and feel energy. But this specialness is just codependent bullshit that I really don't believe in anymore. So anyways, all that to say that when I just did the hard work, like really, when I just looked at like all the pieces that are hard to look at, like how how my relationships were growing up, of how much there was, and not just with my family, like with friends too, with at school, or in a lot in friendship, like just all kinds of connection with other humans, how unhealthy it was for me, and how I thought it was normal. Like I thought before we started to use the word gaslighting, like I thought that was normal. Before I knew what guilt trip was, I thought that was normal. Before, yeah, I had no idea. And then when I started learning about all of this, I was like, oh my God, no wonder I've had no chance to have a healthy relationship and to feel safe in that. I need to restructure everything, like literally everything. And as I was just actually saying in a workshop I was teaching this morning in the Yes Haven, which was called Trust Beyond Trauma, as I was talking about just this entire topic, I was explaining to the women in there that a lot of us can do this work in order to have better partnerships or relationships. Like they really want to have that dream partnership. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that they do this work with this expectation of never having to meet toxic relationships again. And that's not realistic, because it's going to happen again, because that's what happened to me. And it happens in general because it's part of you learning, and it's part of you going through your own initiations of really understanding what is a red flag, what is a green flag, when do you put down boundaries, when do you say no, when do you say yes, what does that look like, how are you communicating, are you self-manipulating, are you being a good girl again, are you really being yourself, are you self-abandoning, are you anxious, are you avoidant, what does that look like? That gets to only be practiced through dating and through relationships, and seeing how, unless you have a partner that you're growing with, then you'll meet all kinds of layers of yourself. So it's
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It sounds a lot like you've kind of had to let go of some relationships and friendships in your past.
Yes.
Am I right to assume that?
100%.
What would you say
yeah.
to someone who is maybe in a friendship, a long-standing friendship, that they no longer feel like they're getting something from? And I say that in the sense of, maybe they've changed, their interests have changed, their values have changed, they don't necessarily align with the person or the way that they communicate or share anymore. Like, that's tough, right? Because even personally, like, I've dealt with that, and having to come to terms with the fact that, like, hey, we're not the same people that we were when we became friends 10 years ago, and that's okay. But you almost have to mourn the loss of the friendship that was, in order to be able to continue a friendship moving forward, if that's what you want. Otherwise, I feel like you almost end up resenting the person because you're constantly wishing that they were different, but because you changed, right? Or they changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be on both ends.
Exactly. Like there is change in general. And I think you said it right there. Like, you're constantly expecting them to be a certain way. So technically you're actually not loving them for who they are. You're loving them for the image you want them to be. And in that, it can be very hard. And I don't think we talk enough about like girlfriend breakups. Like, they're huge and they're a thing, and they suck. Like, they fucking suck. And they are also a part of our initiation into understanding that if you are committed and devoted to your own growth and meeting yourself deeper and being more intimate, that means that no matter what, like, people we meet at certain points, certain times in our lives, like, we match them on a certain level. So when you no longer are that match, you will no longer be literally in that same like coexistence as them. Like, you guys are not the magnets you used to be. And that's okay. You don't have to make people wrong. I see women do this all the time. Making people, well, anyone, but mostly women, because we have a tendency of being a little bit more catty and gossipy, because that's just like who we are. But there's a tendency of, or maybe it's not who we are. You know what I mean?
A little bit more in our nature, if you will.
Yes, like there's a lot more of like the high strung feelings involved, and there's a lot of more drama, I would assume, anyways, from what stereotypically, unfortunately. But we get to change that. We get to practice literally how to be safer women to each other. Like, really, I'm really passionate about that. Like, even in my containers, like, yesterday I had a whole class of just teaching how to be safer with each other in this container of my TRL group, my rising leader. But so a tendency we have, unfortunately, is when we start to change and then we don't align with certain people anymore, we make them wrong so that we can still feel in control and safer about what's happening. And we make them wrong so that we could also feel better about who we are. Instead of, how about you would just look at, hey, again, I just look at things as energy because it's so much easier. I'm just a different energy now. They are, I don't know, like, I'm a phone and they're a microphone. We're just not matching anymore. It's just different and that's it. They don't have to be wrong for where they're at in their lives. And I think a big thing that usually most women forget to do or don't want to do or avoid to do is have the hard conversation. Yeah. And something I highly believe in, and my partner and I often talk about this, is hard conversations create an easy life. And easy conversations create a hard life. Mm-hmm. Period.
Well, funny, my dad used to say easy way in, hard way out, hard way in, easy way out. And he was saying that mostly, in regards to like our careers and what we would do. And it's like, if you put in the effort now, like you'll be better off later. But it is kind of similar.
Right.
And I totally agree. I feel that way in my relationship too. Like we definitely were so open. Like anything that comes up that bothers us at any point, even if it's tiny, obviously we let it kind of simmer, like 24 hours later, if it's still bothering us, like, it's worth the conversation.
Exactly. Like, do not let those things accumulate. And I think that's what happens in friendship too, is like, people just ghost so easily because people right now, like they forgot, like they don't have a high emotional intelligence for the most part. They don't take the time to really understand how they can communicate better, like consciously communicate, meaning like I had a whole class about this in the Yes Haven where we were like, it was like, what does it look like to have a conversation without blame or making someone wrong and to actively find a solution or just settle things or close things down, which to me would sound something like, and again, I am not at the core, not a good communicator at all. You ask my parents when I was growing up, holy shit. I was super sarcastic, just like aggressive, defensive, justifying, like all the things. Like Same. I've had to learn.
Me too. Same.
Yeah.
And I know that we connect a lot on that level too, because like at the core, like we have so many similarities. We really do.
Yeah.
But that's something that you have to learn. And that's the thing. It's like, not everyone realizes that you can learn. And I think that a lot of people kind of get stuck on like what they know and never necessarily develop that emotional intelligence. And so, everyone's on their own journey, they're on their own path. Like there is no right or wrong timeline. Like you have to respect that ultimately. Or like we said, like you're going to harp on what you wish someone was and not really love them for them, So I do think that that's important, but it is challenging. Like I've been having to practice this in different relationships and it's testing, and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, like how can I remain patient? How can I be empathetic? Because I too, at one point was the one who was defensive, was the one who was aggressive, was the one who whatever. And people gave me grace and gave me empathy. So I'm having to now like dig deep and seeing that in others. And not to say that I'm above anybody, because I'm not. That's not the point. It's just I think there is a more effective way to be able to communicate, not only like for yourself, but for others. And what's difficult is that even the people who want to, it's not always well received.
Yeah, right. That's which goes back to the initial good girl. It's like, there's a fine line, actually, I should say. There's like, it's not your job to make sure you're well received by someone. Right. And you do have a responsibility to speak of things in a way that will not be purposefully triggering to someone. Like sometimes people are like, they don't care. Yeah, the delivery is just like fucking out of this world. It's like, dude, really? Like you said that? Like, that was going to hurt them. Yeah. But maybe if someone's going through like that thing with a girlfriend, or they want to have that conversation with a friend in general about like what's happening, we were talking about that in the conscious communication workshop. It's like, it's so easy. Okay. You just have to learn really like how can we communicate better? And it's a practice, but you can learn. And so an easy way to just have a conversation is, let's say something happened or something didn't happen. Let's say this person, you guys are avoidant, you guys are taking up space. You don't even know how to bring up the conversation, but you can feel something's off. You're just like, oh, this is so icky. And it's like back here in the background. And you're like, I don't even know how to, like, where do I start with this? What do we even say? Like, and just having a conversation of like, hey, I just wanted to let you know my experience of what is happening right now with our friendship. So you're not putting any blame of you're doing this because this is how we've learned how to talk is you. Like it's external. You have to bring it internally. So you have to use the language I, not you. Yeah. So not you did this, more like I feel like this when this happened. Yeah. So, hey, I don't know how to start the conversation right now. I can feel something's a little bit off. You probably feel it too because she most likely does or he does. I would love to have the conversation if you're open about it. And if you're not, I respect that as well. Respecting boundaries is very important. But I wanted to share with you openly right now that I feel like we are changing paths and we are probably not invested in the same things anymore. And I can respect that. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm aware that we're not spending as much time together and that, you know, we are not in the same place as we were. And I don't want to make any of us wrong. I actually want to honor that and respect that. And thank you for the friendship that we had at the time.
Everybody take notes.
But can you imagine if we all had that conversation? Oh my God, if I read that, I'd be like, wow, like, thank you. I feel so free. I feel like I have permission to lean even deeper into all my friendships now because I'm not afraid of this like rejection or abandonment or judgment, like someone's gonna fucking hate me or start talking shit about me and tell everyone all my secrets to the world, because I've had that, you know, like, and that's so heart-wrenching. And so there's a way to communicate where we get to support each other, again, to be a safer woman to ourselves and to each other in business, in friendship, in relationship, and just keep our freaking hearts open, because that's our greatest gift that we can provide to the world.
Love that so much. Okay. So now we're combining money, energy. We're bringing it together. We did the relationships. Honestly, I could talk about this shit all day, but like,
I know.
Hey, gotta kind of like stick on brand a little, okay?
Do we? Do we have to?
No, we really don't. We really don't. But I want to.
Yes. I hear you.
Because you do talk about Monergy and the energy behind money and all of that in this concept, and it's super cool and awesome. And you mentioned to me, you said something yesterday, and I want to know more. You said that you recently made the most amount of money in the shortest time frame ever. What the hell did you do?
Yes. Yeah. I know. It's wow, I've been through so many layers of what money was to me and what it's it's wild. I went from like making nothing, living paycheck to paycheck, or even college, working 3 jobs and then working corporate, and then being a personal trainer, actually doing pretty well, and then starting my online stuff, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, I think I'm gonna have to pause for. Can you just pause for a second? Because I'm just gonna close the door because there's the kids outside that are yelling and it's gonna really bother me. Okay, 1 second.
Pause. We'll keep rolling. Oh, she has a really nice house, guys. Wow.
Okay.
Are we back?
So, yes. So what the hell did I do? Just to get back to your question so that we're not like riffing off for another hour and a half. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could, but I know,
it's okay.
You have a life. No, wait, but before you even get into that, like, talk to us a little bit about like your financial journey too, because I know, like you said, you know, you were working hard, all these jobs, and you started your business, you ended up hitting, you know, what figure, and then you kind of, I kind of know your journey a little, so I don't want to talk for you.
Yes.
But like, tell everybody.
Yeah, because actually, I think not a lot of people hear this type of journey. I think people hear about the people going through their struggles and then hitting the point and then just going up from there.
Right.
Like, we don't really hear much more than that, basically.
Yeah.
But it totally went up and down for me. Like, I was struggling. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I remember when I first got this apartment, I could barely afford $1,000 a month, you know, like it was a hard time. And then when I started my online work, it just, I clicked something, like something clicked, and I just like started to make money really easily. And so my first year of online work, I guess, was starting 2019, COVID hit. Of course, that's going to boom because everything boomed online. And then I hit 2020. I'm trying to think of the years. 2021 was definitely my biggest year, where I made I think around 160K that year. And like, what? Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, what's the whisper? It was awesome because I didn't even realize I made that much money, which was so crazy. I was definitely also living in Austin, Texas at the time, so I was investing a lot of money, even just like in rent. My rent was like, 5,000 a month. It was crazy. So my money was definitely, yeah, it was expensive. Like, but it was like I like threw myself in the abyss, and I knew that I was there to like experience all of it, and I allowed money to come to me in order to support that subconsciously. I wasn't doing it like, well, okay, we need this in order to do that.
That's it. That's your whole like concept of Monergy too, right?
Right.
It's almost like all that money came to support that lifestyle of yours that you were leading at the time.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, is that like Monergy and energy in general, like energy does not know where to go until you command it. If you have no idea what you want this money for and why it's coming in with intention, you're not going to have it easily. You're going to have to work hard 100%. And so, yeah. And then 2022 came, and I just had a crash. I couldn't, like nothing was working. I was totally just trying to make it work. But at the same time, I knew I didn't want to do shit. I knew I didn't want to work. I knew I didn't want to do it. I knew I was like fed up. That was the time that I was like kind of seeing the darkness of the industry. I was just like, ugh, no, like I just fucking couldn't. I was burnt. I was burnt, not from overworking, which is interesting. I was burnt from just like, Austin, there was a lot of energy. I went to events 3-4 times a week. I was doing a lot. I was socializing a lot. I was playing a lot. But that's what I realized, that I made so much money and then I didn't know how to hold it. That's the piece that was really interesting. And I was in a time where I was just questioning who I was, if I really wanted to do this work, what would it look like? This is not sustainable. Like the way I'm doing it, I was just questioning everything. So 2022, I haven't even done my taxes yet. It is not looking good. Like it is like, I probably made, I don't know, maybe like 25, 30K, like really nothing. Okay.
Yeah, big difference.
Huge difference. And I mean, this year alone, where are we now? We're end of May, almost June. I'm probably at, let me calculate quick. I'll tell you very honestly. I'm probably at,
she's whipped the calculator out, people.
Yeah, it's happening. So we're almost halfway through the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm almost at already 50,000 very easily. Yeah. And my whole point is that like, I really honestly feel like if I wanted to be a millionaire, could do it. Like it's not a problem to me.
Right.
My biggest thing is my time freedom. I care about my time freedom so much. And not to say that I have to sacrifice that. It's just where I'm at in my life right now. I'm really honoring my cycle of my life right now. I'm pregnant. Like I just got, I know. Like surprise, that's guys. The thing too. Surprise. I'm pregnant. So we just found out at the beginning of the year, I'm like, 15 weeks. I don't want to work hard. Like I just don't. I don't even feel like doing that much. Like and also I was realizing, which I shared with you recently, is that like I noticed that if my coaching or my work online or anything at all doesn't challenge me, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm bored. I'm literally bored.
Yeah.
And that was really it's easy to get to that sometimes. So, and especially when money just flows in and is easy and you're allowing it, it's like, okay, how can I have that happen and still be challenged so that I'm enjoying what I'm creating and there's life force energy being shared in that area of my life and it's just continuously flowing. You have a lot more say, on your Monergy, I think, than people assume it to be. And also the biggest difference, going back to your original question with this container, the rising leader, I was starting a landing page. I was like going in, I was like, hey, got to do all the things. And I was totally procrastinating and I could hear, also, I should say before I get into the story, another piece that really changed for me in 2022 was my faith. Everything just came back. I felt like God just ripped out everything from my hands and was just like, you listen to me now, okay? We're co-creating this together. It's not just about you, which I think manifestation could be a little bit I-oriented, not we-oriented.
Yeah.
And I did all the manifestation stuff. Everything I wanted was like, check, 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 check. I did it. Got that. Blah, 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 blah,
Like, okay, what's
blah.
next?
What's next?
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, oh, you're moving from I to we. And then what does that look like fully? Not just talking about it, not just like assuming it to be there, not doing it half-assed, like fully being there. And so, yeah, my relationship with God has changed a lot. And I should say not even religion, God, because it has nothing to do with religion. It's just this living and leading my life solely, number one, on faith. Like, if there's no faith, I don't know where I would be right now, truly. Like, even with this pregnancy, the timing is like, it's crazy. It's like, I would not be okay if I didn't have any faith during this pregnancy. I would not be okay at all.
Yeah.
And
we'll dive into that too eventually, because like there's so much to talk about that. Like,
yes,
I don't know that we'll have time today, but like you're definitely coming back. Like, we all know that.
100%.
And like
100%.
How the pregnancy has like affected you, and you know, like you had so many fears leading up to it. It was
so
also
much.
a surprise, right?
Oh my God.
So like, with all of that, like I've had similar feelings. We've had so many discussions about this, and I think so many other women could relate to. It's like, especially if like you're running your own business and you're self-supporting, there are a lot of fears that go around it about like how your life's going to change, how your body's going to change, like all of the things,
whole thing.
you know? And so many stories and so many things that were just kind of like, I guess, like almost brainwashed into like thinking, believing, feeling. And it kind of comes down to not really trusting yourself, right? And not having, let's say, that faith, like you said. So we'll table that and bring that back another time.
Yes. And thank you for pausing that, because what's coming through right now, actually, into sharing this process that I just went through, into making the most in the least amount of time, the least effort. For some reason, because I think it's aligned, and I think you'll understand when I share the story, but I don't specifically want to share the number of this. I think I shared it with you personally, but not on the podcast. It feels out of integrity to you. Just for this one reason. I'm also, you know, understanding why, and I'm learning about it through this. But the biggest thing is that when I noticed that I was procrastinating through the landing page and basically doing all the things that I thought I had to do in order to launch this, I was like, this is such a fucking waste of time. Like, I so trust this, and I know women want this now. Like, I'm wasting time for allowing me to coach them, to guide them, to be here with them through something so silly. Like, it's literally so silly. Like, I can sell and invite women through my stories. And honestly, I was like, let me use this as an example to show them exactly that it can be easy. Like, I knew in that moment, it was like, just literally barely even have stories. Don't even over post about it. It's like some people post, you know, about their launches or their offers multiple times a day. And I think I probably posted about it maybe 15 times in like 2 months. Like, it really wasn't a lot. And sure enough, my biggest intention, so as I was like kind of feeling into, it was just so different from anything I had done before. Like, usually I have like a curriculum, like week 1, we'll do this, week 2, week 3, week 4. This time I was like, no, like, we're going to have topics, we're going to have conversations, but I want to let God lead this. Like, I don't want to control this conversation. Like, I want it to come through and to take over, basically. I was like, this doesn't feel like it's about me. And so I knew what it was around, you know, priorities and core values and conscious business and leadership and impact and money and power and boundaries and the good girl syndrome and all the, like, I knew these topics, and I really wanted to make it individualized for the women. So again, a thing that I experience is a lack of individuality in groups. So when I would join programs, is people telling me what to do, but no one's asking me what would be best for me. And I'm a big believer, going back full circle, beginning of the conversation, of like, I truly believe I am not here to tell you what the fuck to do. Right. I'll tell you from my experience what worked for me, and let me ask you the really raw, deep questions for you to figure out your answers, because you have them all. Are you willing to ask the right questions to find them? That's the juice. And so I was really clear with what I wanted in the container. And I remember writing it in my journal, like, okay, I want TRL to consist of this, and I want it to feel like that. And I remember, and I just saw it in my journal this morning, wherever it is, but it wrote like the first line, this is old me. It was like, TRL, I really want to make a lot of money from this. And I scratched it out really fast. And I was like, and then I wrote a prayer and I said, God, please take out anything of my conscious, subconscious mind, my hands, anything that has to do with more of the cost of this and how much money I'm going to make from this. Please remove any of this right now. Like, I don't want any of this at all. You will tell me the price. I will know the price, and it'll just be like oh yeah, that, of course. It won't even be a question. It won't be like, how much? Is it too much? Is it too little? I have no idea. Like, I will know the number when you give it to me. The rest, please support me into giving as the most value I possibly can to these women, and support them in a way that they've never been fucking supported before, and completely transform their fucking lives. Like, I actually mean that from the bottom of my fucking heart. Please take this over. And sure enough, it was just like boom, 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 boom. Next. I had people apply left, right, and center. Like, I don't even know where they came from. This group of women, like, I've never worked with them. Like, I honestly don't know where they came from. And it was just so, I surrendered. I totally was just like, you take over. Like, I'm here for the people. You will do the rest. That's it. And I fully trust that. And I did. And it was effortless. It was really effortless. Like, I got on the calls. I was not trying to like sell them shit. I was just like, tell me about where you're at. Like, where do you want to take this? Like, what is the biggest thing that is important to you? Like, what do you want to receive from this container? And at the end of this, like, what is your ideal outcome, and what is your biggest struggle? Like, I want to hear your heart. And I also want to be challenged through this too. Like, I know this is not just me coming in and being like, okay, like, I was like, I want challenge as well. And sure enough, I had all this stuff come up for me, and I was like, wow, okay, we're like really, we're in this.
That's it.
And it
I feel like
it felt
when you
so
support
good.
Others, no, for sure. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, not at all.
In supporting others, you support yourself at the same time. Like, I feel like you learn so much by teaching others, and just so many lessons kind of come through, and it's really beautiful. Okay, I have one more question for you, and then we're gonna end with a little segment that I like to call Mindful Minute.
Love it.
My last question for you is, how do you define success? Like, what does success mean to you?
Oh, I was sharing a couple of these on my Instagram stories, like a couple of little nuggets. Those are, because sometimes like it'll come up different on some days, but I like to share them so that people can understand what it could look like for them. So for me, success, honestly, every day it looks different, and every day I feel like we're blessed with the opportunity to redefine success, which for me, I'll just use today as an example. Today's success looked like for me waking up slow with my partner and having the space and time in our bed of cuddling and having our dog come and join us and just taking our time. Like, that was a moment of success to me. And then another time was having that workshop this morning where people are having breakthroughs, and I'm feeling charged and they're feeling charged, and there's so much clarity, and we all feel really good, and we feel like we're growing and learning. And so I guess in order to like put this in a short statement, the way that I would define success would be really understanding and living by the core values that matter to you, and it's supporting your time and energy and money freedom in a way that feels really good and really unique to you and what matters to you. And that can look like so many things, like slow mornings and canceling your whole day and doing nothing. And then, choosing to spoil your partner or yourself through a spa day, or maybe it's spending, $1,000 on a brand new wardrobe, which I just did. And it was like, whoa, like I didn't even know I could do this. But like, and so it feels like freedom. True. It feels like freedom and choice of freedom. And what people tend to forget is that because people crave freedom so much, it's so understandable. But in order to have that freedom, like, you have to do the hard shit. You have to do the uncomfortable things. And it does require you to be more energy and time efficient at a macro level, so that those little micro moments, like cuddling in bed in a slow morning, can be available to you. And so do the hard macro shit, and then you're going to experience all these little moments of micro success that actually end up being macro success. So it's pretty ironic, but and just living the life according to how you want to live it, period, and according to your core values. letting that, and God, again, God, faith, like letting that be the main thing that just allows you to be guided and to surrender and let go and create space.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that and I feel that so much. I feel like I connect a lot on that kind of like vague, broad definition, if you will, because I think a lot of people see success as like a final destination, like you've achieved something, but like you can, like if you see it that way, you can also see like you getting through the day as a success and an achievement.
Yes.
You know, you
oh my
like
God,
showing love to your partner, a success and an achievement. You know, like it's not always monetary or results driven. You know.
It's exactly it. It's like what would success, imagine how different it would be if we like looked at success as this daily thing that you can accomplish, quote unquote, in micro moments. Because that's available to you at all times. Literally, you can be successful in every single moment.
Yeah, and then imagine how fucking successful you are. I'd be like, yo, I achieved success like a million times today.
A million times. And then it's like, then you boost your confidence, then you boost your competence, then you're able to like actually believe in yourself, trust yourself in little tiny ways. And then that will show up always at a bigger scale, always. And that's going to impact your work. It's going to impact your money. So yeah, it's definitely available. I think, waiting for the big thing to then define success, like it's a trap. Don't get caught up in that. You'll wait forever.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up here.
All right.
Mindful minute. I like everyone, and I'm obviously you're the first guest, so you're my test subject, but I think it's a really cool way to kind of, give the listeners a little bit of your knowledge, not that you haven't already, my God. But what's one thing that you wish someone told you that could have supported you immensely in your growth, or like what advice would you give someone trying to achieve their goals, whatever they may be in life?
Honor the seasons you're in. Honor them. I didn't have the understanding of that, and so when I hit a hard season, I thought something was wrong with me, and it got so much worse. And like which also will get you to mature your feminine, because it's all cyclical living, right? So understanding there are seasons and do your best to honor them so that you don't keep yourself in a trap, and it's actually going to be a lot more smoother than you think it's going to be. So yeah, honor your seasons. I would say that for sure.
Yeah, love that so much, so much. Well, Tasha, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It felt so good, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt awesome. Thanks for having me, and having me as your first one. Like, what an honor.
Of course, first and certainly not last, because you will be back. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, mostly very active on, actually recently not really, but anyways, I'm pretty active on Instagram at Natasha Kredl, Kredl. I have my own podcast, Your Expansive Self. If you look up just my name, you'll find it too. I don't have a website. You can check out all the things in like the link in my bio kind of thing, and I'm sure Alyssa will share like the details. But yeah, if you want to be part of my world, come. We got lots of space, and it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, come and find me, and you'll see that it's worth it, because there's so much available there. I am not even the same person I was 6 months ago, and I know that's available for everyone, and
it's worth it, people.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's definitely it is worth it. And I love also that I'm so devoted to growth, that like as I grow, my community grows, the people around me grows, my teachings grow, everything grows. And it's like we're building a garden, and that garden is like so abundant, and it's just going to be more abundant. And yeah, I would love to have people there with me.
I love you.
I love you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, guys, that's it. Bye.
Bye.